Hello folks, it's Thanksgiving long weekend here in Canada, and time to start thinking about overwintering your marginal potted exotic plants. So anything we have in the ground is fine. There's yucca elephantippi's been in there 10.5 years. Cordylines in the ground, completely fine in the winter. But when things are in pots, your marginal plants are in pots like that citrus, there's always a risk of the pot freezing in a bad winter. So what we do, we convert our tiki hut, that's where we have our tikis, into a shelter for our marginal / exotic potted plants. So the roots in the pot don't freeze in the if we were to get a cold snap. So what we do is we put a couple pieces of plastic on the openings and then a tarp on the front. So what we have here, I'll open this up. It's very simple, it just goes on with screws, just hangs on. There's no heat in here or anything. I'm starting to get ready now. I know it seems kind of early, but these are potted yuccas. And if you don't have a shelter or a heated garage or something, if you're in a cold climate, you want to wrap those pots and put them up close to the house. Bubble wrap, blanket, burlap, whatever. Because remember, plants in pots, these type of plants in pots are much less cold hardy than if they're in the ground. If those roots freeze solid, kiss your plants goodbye. I don't even care if it's a Rhopatophyllum hystrix or a sable minor. If it's frozen solid, you're going to have a pomsicle or a yuccasicle. So there is a Phoenix canariensis that I grew from seed, 2-gallon pot. I just put a few things in here now, so I don't have to worry about it later. But you can see what it looks like in here. It's quite high. And the tikis are stored on this side. And this is just enough shelter for the potted plants. We got to put about 20 more in here. I have Rhopatophyllum hystrix in pots. Wendy's got Camerops in pots. Lots of citrus. And even these cordylines in pots are at risk of freezing if you get a bad cold snap. So a bad cold snap here may be in the mid-20s Fahrenheit, but it's the prolonged cold. And the longer it stays cold, the easier these are to freeze solid. So those are terracotta pots too. So those are going into the shelter here, and the back of the shelter looks like this. It does have board and batten siding. We made it out of scrap wood and timber frame from trees we cut down on the property. So it's got plastic in the back, and that's good enough. It's got Lexan on top. That's good enough to store our potted plants in. We used to have them in another shelter, but we ripped it down and we made this shelter earlier this year. So be prepared, folks. I don't like to be caught off guard. I know a lot of people do. They get caught off guard and they scramble last minute to put stuff in. So the rest of the stuff is going in here probably beginning of November. And I just put these ones in now because they're so freaking heavy, and they're down at the front garden. So they're big pots. Takes a lot longer to freeze a pot like that, but I don't want to take any chances. And you can see these been outside through a lot of winters in unheated shelter like this. So that's why a lot of people lose potted exotic plants. They aren't in pots, and they don't realize that plants in pots are much less cold hardy than if they were in the ground. So be prepared, folks. Get a heads up on Old Man Winter before it gets a head up on you and nukes your potted plants by freezing them to death. So I know it may look a little ugly, but it's temporary, and all the stuff comes out mid-March here on Salt Spring Island, British Columbia, Canada. A good cold blast always reminds us that we are in Canada, in the Southern Gulf Islands here. All right, thanks for watching.